Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits and welcome to the recap of the January 2020 ChemKnits Dialogue live stream. Last month we were inspired by this beautiful photo of the northern lights, Aurora Borealis, and I wanted to create a few different colorways inspired by these lights. The last colorway we started in the live stream is sort of a step one of a two-step process. I used a combination of Dharma radioactive, sour apple, electric violet, and some frozen to create these greens and blues and purples that you see in the lights of the sky. And what we're going to do today, which is the next morning after the stream, is we're going to add some resist points and then over dye this in some blue and black to give us that sky and the mountain around surrounding the lights. So we have these like pops of color. This yarn is Knit Picks Capretta, which is 80% fine merino wool, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. Since it is a non-superwash yarn, when we added the colors, they spread beautifully versus striking quickly. Things are now completely cool. And just to show the other side, we do not have perfect color penetration, which I knew going into this, but I didn't want to flip the yarn. And I didn't feel that it was super important because A, some white left behind is fine as well, and B, we're going to be adding resists and covering up a lot of the yarn with a darker color. And so based on where the colors are located on the yarn is where I can pick my resist points. Now, just like the lights move throughout the sky, I plan to do the resists. I'm not going to worry about the resists being identical on each of these three skeins, even though they are fairly identical right now. Am I okay if the finished yarn is similar? Yeah, of course. Like, it's just not going to be a problem if it's not. So now I'm going to go through and take some reusable nylon zip ties and add it onto the yarn, pulling tightly. And I'm doing this in sections like here. I'm going to put two close together. When we open this up, there'll be some spots of green that are left, but there might also be some darkness in there, and I think it'll look pretty cool. And so we're just going through and we're going to aim for different levels of these colors to be left behind. And by doubling it over, it means that these patches might be a little bit larger than what we might otherwise see. And so, gosh, and I might even connect things to one another. Like here, I think I might triple up. What I am aiming for is getting some of these colors that I want to preserve in the resist point itself. That is sort of my goal with that. I just want to try to preserve some of these colors. And again, I'm looking at the three of these. I don't know if I'd list them as a set, but I'm definitely looking at it as a set. Something that sort of goes together to tell this story. So someone asked on the stream how long the zip ties last, and they go through many uses. The two ways that I usually have to end up stop using the zip ties are if they snap, or at some point like this one isn't catching anymore. But anyway, I am going to continue adding a bunch of resists onto the yarn, and I'll show you what it looks like in the end. Okay, the finished mess is three skeins that are connected in all kinds of ways. And I thought about putting them full immersion inside my kettle, but I actually think I'm going to go back to the catering steam pan. This is the same pan that I used before, but I'm going to add another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tablespoons of white vinegar, and we will increase the water level as well. But again, this is sort of going to be a set, And by having it in the pan, I'm not worried about there being tiny patches of color and a lot surrounded with the dark color. It's okay if some of these colors peek through in the non-resist areas as well, which is why I jumbled everything together in this unique way. As I turn on the heat on these two burners, my catering steam pan is 4 inches deep, full size, so we're across two burners. I just added another 8 cups of water. This allows things to float a bit. It'll help the color spread. The non-superwash element will also help it spread. But I'm gonna go prepare some dye mixtures to add on to this. Okay, we are warm. We are warm, and I'm gonna start adding color. So what I did was I dissolved navy, gunmetal, and some black in, I guess, 2/3. I did half a cup of water and then a 1/4 cup of the dye color. And keep in mind that everything in here is sort of in a bit of a jumble currently. So things are gonna spread, and these 3 hues will sort of mix and layer together a bit on top of the yarn. But I am going to, I think, give a little bit, I think I want to give a little bit of time for the navy to spread and absorb a bit before I add the next color on. But I want sort of some different hues in these areas that are getting some coverage as well. So I'm gonna wait 5 minutes and then we'll come and add the next color. But again, I'm not sure where one skein ends and the next begins. The goal is to try to have some of each color on each, but they will have a different feel to them. This is already looking so cool. And so as you can sort of get a sense, there are going to be some areas peeking through that aren't because of the resist, but because of where we are applying this color. And I think that that is more than okay. But again, I'm aiming, and I might not use all of the black necessarily. This is one of the colors that is definitely more pigmented. I used about half of that black that I measured out, but already I'm getting really excited. I like the interplay of the colors together. And once again, I'm gonna wait 5 minutes. Oh, I'm gonna reduce the heat, but I'm gonna wait 5 minutes before we go and add some of the jacquard gunmetal mixture. I might try at that point to sort of gently flip, because we are adding colors to the top. There is spread, but there's a chance that we're getting some just resist from the way things are sort of laying in the pan. I have to say, I am loving Capretta. It's doing exactly what I want it to do. I need to be careful with the flip, because I don't want, what I don't want is to like pull the yarn out of the resist where it is, but I did want to expose areas that might want, where I might want a little more color. Now coming in, here's some gunmetal. Don't turn brown on me, gunmetal. All right, I think I'm pretty satisfied. As long as the gunmetal doesn't turn brown. There's a little bit of gunmetal and black left over, but maybe we'll do some no dye left behind on that. But anyway, I'm gonna now leave this for, I think, 15 minutes. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Okay, whew, it's cold outside, so my hands are cold. It's been 15 minutes, and it looks like all the color is absorbed, and I'm really happy with this. Even with they're still being, you can see some color that is not from where these resist points are, but I think that that is sort of perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave it in the pot to cool off for a while. Not because I'm afraid of moving it per se, but I want to give this yarn a little more exposure to the heat to make sure everything is really well set. And you don't have to keep the heat on for your yarn to get more heat exposure. But I will remove these resists while the yarn is wet because I think it'll be really hard to wash otherwise. So we'll come back once this is cool so we can see what these colorways look like. As for the other yarn dyed in the live stream, I'm about to go wash all of this off camera. But see, there is purple and the green is still bright. This was the test swatching yarn I did at the beginning. I really wish my webcams could do some of these colors more justice, but that is a big reason why I film these recaps, so you can see what the yarn actually looks like. You guys, I am a fan. There's really no other way to put it. I am a fan of even what we see right now. But what I'm going to do is start to remove these resists. And so right here, we see some purple and teal pop back in, some smaller patches, but also some larger patches where where there wasn't quite as much resist. And what this is doing, and what this technique did, was give us varying sizes of these bursts of light, which, oh, it worked so well. Ooh, look at that bright green pop through. This is honestly better than I hoped, because if I had just taken this brightly colored yarn and layered the black and these deep blues on top of it, we definitely, you can see here, you can still see those teals through that area, but you don't get that bright pop. And so it's this combination of the layering that is stunning and really does require some kind of resist-based technique to make it happen. But I think this also just shows that you aren't limited when playing with resists to just trying to get small patches of color. You can use this to help preserve something, but also give you something really unique and fun. Here's one of those double resist areas. I'm also really excited that instead of mixing one, oh, that is cool. So we've got like that big section, but on the other side, like as you knit through, it'll be a little uneven, which is perfect because parts will have bigger, parts will have smaller. It's not a perfect repeating colorway. One of the nice things about doing this in the pan instead of doing the resist just in a pot is that we have this depth and dimension of these different blacks and browns on the outside as well. And I am a huge fan. And we've got some hints of white, which is like the snow, a little bit of some purple, but I think that this is spectacular. You can see that these colors are definitely related. This one has less purple. They're definitely related, but they are not identical, which is honestly perfect for our inspiration. But yeah, I'm gonna go wash it off camera and we'll come back and take another look once everything is dry. The yarn is all dry. Woohoo! And so let's take a closer look. I started the live stream by playing with some swatches. I pulled a bunch of colors that I thought would look good, 1% stock solutions of various Dharma and Jacquard acid dyes, and played with them. And then I added them in a few more places to make the whole yarn a little more cohesive, but I exercised a lot of restraint, especially for me. So we have white behind. And this really is sort of a nice abstract version of the photo, but also just a fun, playful yarn in its own right. I do want to acknowledge the privilege that I have to swatch colors on yarn and play in such a random fashion. I know I have a lot of resources at my disposal, and I'm very thankful and appreciative of the support from all of you watching that allows me to play with all of this yarn. If you want to play around with your colors, but you have limited yarn at your disposal, you can absolutely use paper towels or something to get a sense of the hues of your color as you are planning out your colors. Or you can use some mini skeins if you really want to see how they go onto yarn. Next up, I went abstract and really pulled from the green lights in the sky and the darkness of everything else around it. I played with a few greens and didn't quite nail in the end that more aqua color that we saw in the inspiration photo. But I think there's no question that you can look at this and look at the photo and see, oh wow, yeah, I see where she got her inspiration. As for the purple, there's just a hint down at the bottom of both the skein and the blank. And we did dye these at the same time in the same pan, which was really, really fun. I am not planning to unravel this blank today because I think you could see how there's going to be a color progression and there'll be a section of the greens and sections of the navy with some hints of green mixed in. I think that this one is fairly easy to visualize. I expect there will be some modeling in it, not just because of the modeling on the pattern of the blank itself, and here's the wrong side, but also due to some resist just from the stitches themselves. Finally, we have our resist yarn that we dyed in 2 stages on Knit Picks Capretta, which is 80% fine merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. And for this yarn, first we dyed this beautiful green and purple base, not worrying about flipping the yarn to dye the other side because we knew we were going to add resist. And then we randomly applied zip ties to, well, there was some purpose in there. We wanted to cinch up the colors in a way to preserve some green and this pinkish purple all over it, but it was random in that each of these skeins is a little different. And although the vision is still abstract, this feels a bit more literal because you can see the lights sort of streaking through the sky in this yarn, which I think is so fun and beautiful. There are definite differences between these 3 skeins. Whether it is the amount of purple or white or the placement of the different colors, there is a variety. And honestly, I find that true to our Aurora Borealis inspiration. I know I absolutely want to play around more with this resist application in the future. I am beyond thrilled with how this came out, and am really, really happy that we did not overwhelm our colors that we were trying to preserve while maintaining this randomness and this brightness within. Now it is time for my favorite part of these dye-along live stream recaps, where I feature some of the yarn that you dyed inspired by this same photo. Were you drawn to the picture as a whole, or the interplay of the lights and the brightness in the sky, the light reflecting off the water, or the mountain in the image? Whether you drew from a part of the image or the image as a whole and went literal or more abstract, there are so many beautiful things that you could create. If you want your projects to be featured in a future recap, share them on Instagram with the hashtag ChemKnitsDiealong, or reply to the dye-along image on the ChemKnits Facebook page with pictures of your yarn. I usually wait 3 to 5 weeks to share the live stream recap to give all of you plenty of time to dye your yarn, take a photo, and submit it. If the recap is already out, don't despair. I love seeing pictures of the yarn that you dye, and please feel free to share them with me. Just if it's months after the fact, let me know what month inspiration photo you were drawing your color inspiration from. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I love doing these dye-alongs. It is nerve-wracking, yes, because sometimes I'm really pushing myself out of my comfort zone, not just color-wise, but color mixing and matching wise. This is something that I am hoping to get better and better at. And I find that creating and participating in these dye-alongs is really helping me grow as a fiber artist. So thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on so you never miss a live stream or a new video. There are pre-filmed videos that come up at least twice a week, and we just have so much fun. If you love ChemKnits and want to support us on another level, go and check out the ChemKnits Patreon. Patrons can get early access to the Dye Pot PS series every month, some behind-the-scenes sneak peeks, advance notice of ChemKnits Creations shop restocks, and more. You can find the link to the Patreon in both the video description and iCard. What will we be dyeing in February? I don't yet know, but the new photos come up around the 15th of the month, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.